After briefings from Pentagon and the White House, it is clear that the sunken vessel is not the only Iranian warship in South Asia that is at risk of becoming a target of US strikes. Iris Dana is one of 3 Iranian vessels currently in the Indian Ocean after being sunk by American strikes. There are now 2 remaining in the South Asian region. Iranian military tanker Bushehr is currently at the Colombo port. Bushehr is well within Sri Lankan territorial waters. A third vessel is reportedly said to be facing a humanitarian crisis with 300 people on board seeking supplies. Iran's embassy in Colombo has issued an urgent appeal to Sri Lanka's Ministry of Defense requesting 24-hour access to a local port to secure essential food and drinking water for those on board. But the status of this request at the moment remains unclear. The American strike on Iranian ships 2,000 miles away from Iran's shores in South Asia has raised serious concerns on the scale of this war and what it means for the countries in the neighborhood. Apart from the West and the GCC countries, will South Asian nationals also be drawn into the war that they in fact have nothing to do with? For more in this story, we are being joined by Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, former Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Western Naval Command and Chief of Integrated Defence Staff. Vice Admiral Sinha, thank you very much for joining us on this broadcast. My first question to you is, sir, how are these international waters being treated during times of conflict, and what happens if the US chooses to attack a vessel which is in Sri Lankan waters?
Thank you, Vidur, for getting me on your show. It's a serious matter, really. Sinking a ship, a warship, it has happened first time after the Second World War. That too by a submarine torpedo. Now the first thing, the legalities. Legalities are that it was in the international water. US had already declared that it will pick and choose the Iranian ships and it will destroy it, because of the ongoing conflict and ongoing tensions which are there in the West Asia. So from that point of view, legally there is nothing which can challenge the submarine having torpedoed. The second point is that will the South Asian countries get drawn? I don't think so, not for any reason, but yes, it raises concern because they are very close to our home waters, as we call it, as in our backwaters, just few hundred miles from the Indian coastline. And therefore it raises concern that if the submarines are lurking around in this area without our knowledge, then you have a problem, because this is our area in which we do patrolling. We do maritime patrolling for maritime security of our own partner states. All the Indian Ocean littorals are our partner states, and we operate with them. We have our submarines also operating on a similar mission, and our aircraft are flying around in this region. Secondly, all our merchant ships which are bringing trade, as you know, 90% of our trade travels on the sea, coming from South Africa, coming from South Americas, and from the Gulf of Aden, and also from the southeast. And if they are headed for the eastern coast or western coast, then they will be transiting through these areas in which the possibility of submarine being around can't be ruled out. So we must be able to warn our warships, submarines, and the merchant ship that kindly avoid an area, maybe about 100 miles, don't get closer to Sri Lankan coast. But if the submarine was there at that time, there is not necessarily he'll be there, still be there. She has done her target finding, she has destroyed the ship and probably gone away to look for something else. So the point is that it has got the South Asian nations little worried, certainly India. It is a matter of concern. The point that personally I feel, if I were the Western Naval Command Chief at this point in time, then I would have expected the US Navy to tell us not where he was operating, but this submarine operation is taking place south of Sri Lankan coast, maybe up to 100 miles, 200 miles. Not that we'll share this information with anybody, but we will warn our own merchant shipping and our warships and submarines to avoid this area for operations because of the presence of US Navy. So this is a taken for granted. America is our strategic partner. We are partners in Quad, we are partners in Malabar, and we have 2+2 agreement. So the least I would expect that they should have told us, because we are having a damn good, very good relations with the US Navy at the working level. So I find that little bit strange as to why this was not done. Not that we would have shared this info, but for the safety of our own ships, own submarines, and own merchant trade ships.
Right, sir. I get the fact that you are saying that the US should have shared this information with the Indian Navy before carrying out this attack. But in terms of the response of the Indian Navy, do you think there will be some change in the course of action when it comes to the Indian Navy now that attack has occurred, and there is, as you said, this makes it seriously concerning for South Asian nations? How do you think the Indian Navy will respond to the attack that just took place, sir?
Just one point I want to re-emphasize is it's not that the US Navy should have told us as to where they are operating. No, they should have said we have a submarine operating area sorry, from the coastline of Sri Lanka up to maybe 100 miles or 200 miles, that's all, so that we avoid that area completely, because that falls in our area of responsibility as far as providing maritime security to our neighbors is concerned. It is our responsibility. We have an onus to make sure that no threat comes to their maritime assets. So from that point of view, coming back to what you asked, Vidur, the point is that because the submarines are operating in this area, certainly one will now, I'm sure that Indian Navy would have probably getting in touch with the US Navy guys as to do we still have to avoid this area as far as our patrolling is concerned. Our patrolling is 24/7. Not only in this area, there are 7-8 points where we are patrolling all the time, mission-based deployment. So we will caution our ships. Our patrolling and our normal routine will go on. We are not at war. South Asia is not at war. India is not at war. We are really actually not a party to this at all. This is between these two countries. They are at war. They have a problem. There are three, four countries. Maybe NATO, I believe, will now get into action because SSM missile which was fired on Turkey has been intercepted by a NATO battery. So I would think France has just permitted use of its own airfields and ports for the use of the US Navy ships. So I think that gradually the NATO will get sort of dragged. Right. And the issue is not that, the issue is that no discussion was done with even the NATO partners by the US. Now that is a little bit concerning because and you need support. You need support from NATO, but you haven't had any discussion with NATO.
Right.
Why are you having this? So that is the point. Yeah.
Right, sir. I just wanted to get your perspective on another matter. Now, Iranian vessel was attacked, but sir, there are 2 more Iranian vessels who are close to Sri Lankan waters, in Sri Lankan waters at the moment. Is there an imminent threat to the other 2 Iranian vessels? What is your perspective on that, sir?
Well, if it is within the territorial waters of Sri Lanka, there should not be any attack on that, because Sri Lanka, it is within Sri Lankan waters. It means that the territorial waters are considered as part of the territory. So therefore, it will almost willy-nilly it will become an attack on Sri Lanka, which is not the case, which they don't want. I would strongly believe that any Iranian ship within 12 miles of the coast of Sri Lanka or any other country will not be attacked, because that the rule doesn't permit at all. Otherwise, it will provoke that home country, what is called the coastal nation. They have all rights to respond in that case. So I don't think that that will be done, because that will expand. As it is, the war has expanded from the Gulf into the Indian Ocean. That itself is a big issue, and we don't want it to expand further. What has happened, let it be an isolated case, and let the world body decide, rather the NATO's or US decide as to where are they going to attack, which Iranian ship. But certainly, if I were an Iranian ship, I would have been very careful. I would have entered the harbor, taken permission, and if I was at sea, I would have taken all anti-submarine warfare measures. I would have been in readiness state 1. But I was surprised that the Iranian ship which sunk, unfortunately, was not in condition 1. Otherwise, they would have known the submarine.
Right, right. Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, thank you so much for those valuable insights. This, of course, is an ever-evolving situation, and we'll continue to track maritime developments on this front.